The number one question that I'm getting asked right now is how much have housing prices in the Lower Mainland fallen in the last couple months? Let's take a look. My name is Jeff McLennan. I am a realtor with RE/MAX All Points in New Westminster. I've been selling real estate for over 16 years now, and I've never seen anything like what we saw over the last year. Over the last couple weeks, we've been looking at all of the different measures that the government has been taking to try and cool the housing market. And it turned out that the market was about to correct anyway, before any of these things took place. The two major factors are buyer fatigue and rising interest rates. But the question on everybody's mind is, how much has a typical house dropped in price? So how can we actually measure the change in activity? Well, there are certain stats, which I'm gonna go through, and the other main tool is looking at comparable sales. I'm gonna look at New Westminster's stats because that's the area I specialize in. It's the area I know the best. If you're in other parts of the Lower Mainland, you will find that it's pretty typical across the board, although the timing of when things started to change is different. The first stat that I'm watching every month is sales ratio, and this compares how many listings are on the market versus how many are selling. Basically, it's an indicator of what percentage of homes sell every month. So we reached the height of the sales ratios in February in New West. 58% of homes sold. That number is gigantic. To put things in perspective, anything below 12% is considered to be a buyer's market. When it's between 12 and 20%, that's considered a balanced market. And anything over 20% is considered a strong seller's market. Now we've seen a drastic shift. That sales ratio has dropped down to 22%. So this has been a gigantic slowdown in home sales in New Westminster. But keep in mind that traditionally, a seller's market is anything over 20%. Compared to the history of the market, it's actually still really good, but it's a major change. For the past few years, the average days on market in New West houses has always hovered right around a week, and a little bit of that is artificial. So at the height of the market, if listings had been willing to take a look at offers on day one, then most homes would have sold within the first day or two of being on the market. But typically what most realtors did was they waited a week before they looked at offers to give the seller the highest chance to get a multiple offer. We've gone from 7 days to about 11. But remember, that original 7 was artificial. It's really around 3 or 4 without the delay in offers. Now, at 11 days, most listings are looking at offers as they come. Even though we don't have nearly as many homes selling, what we are finding is that the good ones still sell right away. The other stat that I'm always paying attention to that is an excellent indicator of what's going on in the market is the list price compared to the sale price. And this gets pretty interesting. Right now, your typical house in New West is selling for 99.7% of the asking price. In February, it was 112.5. So right now, most homes are selling right around their asking price. That's an average. So that means there are still lots going into multiple offers, selling for higher, but some are negotiating below. Whereas in February, everything was selling over the asking price and significantly above. 12% is a huge bump. Now, even though 99.7% still seems like a really high number, we need to keep a few things in mind. The first is that this is the first time since 2020 that that number has dropped below 100%. That is a massive change in our market. Between 2019 and 2020, your average home was selling between 95 and 97% of its asking price. So we're still above that, but we are seeing a major change in direction, and I would expect that this to continue to correct. If you're a buyer out there and you're waiting for your chance to get into a house, now is a great time, but I don't want to oversell it. This is still a seller's market, although a drastically different one than the one that we saw before. At that high of a sales ratio and quick days on market, you should still expect the listings that you like to go into multiple offers. And I can say that firsthand in my own experience, since the market has shifted, I have sold 5 homes, 4 of which sold in multiple offers. Now, they were very different multiple offers than what we were experiencing before. Before, we were looking at competing with 10 to 15 other buyers. You had to be subject free to have any sort of chance of getting the home. And typically, homes were selling in the hundreds of thousands of dollars over the asking price. Now, in all the multiple offers that I've been involved in, we are looking at maybe 2 to 3 buyers competing for the same home. We are talking about these homes selling typically in the tens of thousands of dollars over the asking price instead of the hundreds. And I am pleased to say that every single home, whether I've been on a listing or the buyer's side, has had subjects, which is a huge benefit if you're buying. Your average house in New West right now is selling for about $1.6 million. A year ago, we were looking at 1.3, and a year before that, we were in the 1.1s. Even though prices have dropped, we're still more than 18% higher in price than we were the year before. If there's all this doom and gloom, why aren't prices dropping more than they have? I think it's because we're comparing to the peak and not to a typical year. Last year was a once in a lifetime year in real estate. We have never seen anything like it, and I doubt we're gonna see anything like it ever again. We had a global pandemic, we had work shortages, we had so many factors, and we had record low interest rates. Let's look at May as an example. This year in May in New West, we had 20 house sales. The year before, we had 45. That is a drastic change. But let's compare it to the 2 years before. 2020, we had 20 homes sold in New West in May. And in 2019, we had 26. So even though this is much slower than last year, it's actually pretty typical for New West. The housing price index thinks that prices have dropped about 40,000. I think that's low. I think prices have dropped higher than that. I was able to find what I think are the 2 most comparable homes for sale in New Westminster in February, which was the peak, and in May. In February, we had 813 10th Street for sale in Moody Park, and in May, we had 1018 Edinburgh for sale, also in Moody Park. These 2 homes are built in the same era, very similar square footage, very similar lot sizes. Their assessed values are almost identical, and they were even marketed by the same realtor. Both of them asked the same asking price, and both of them had multiple offers. The one in February on 10th sold for $200,000 over the asking price, and the one in May also sold in multiple offers, but for $100,000 over asking price. Now, this isn't exact, but this does support what my gut says, which is that your typical house in New Westminster has dropped in value by about $100,000 since the market started to correct. I hope you found that interesting. If you are wondering, okay, that's what's going on with houses, but what about condos? Condos are a different beast. I think I'm gonna do a video breaking down what's going on with them next week. If you wanna see that, make sure to subscribe. And in the meantime, if you have any questions or you wanna talk about real estate, there's a link below if you wanna book a time with me to chat. Thanks.